So what do you do when you feel like you have mastered the basics of card making? Stamping, die cutting, embossing are all wonderful and super fun to do, but you might be wondering, what's the next step for me? I had this issue a couple of years ago as well, where I was past the beginner stage of card making, but watercoloring and Copic coloring and all those things seemed still a little bit too intimidating for me. So let's dive into some of my secrets on how to turn your basic cards into anything but basic. Ink blending was one of those things that was a challenge to learn. Remember back in the day when fancy brushes weren't available and you had to pretty much have a degree in physics to get the exact necessary hand pressure to avoid harsh lines in your cardstock? Ah, the good old days. Now, embossing is what made me fall in love with stamping in the first place. Seeing that powder melt and knowing it was going to resist the ink that I was going to add was like some sort of unicorn magic. From that moment on, stamping became one of my absolute life passions. Emboss Resist is timeless, but what about adding a couple of extra steps to make it even better? Now grab yourself a cover die and cut it using some colors of cardstock. My favorite go-tos are black and white, super simple and easy. Now send your art piece through the die cutting machine as well. For intricate dies, you're probably going to want to add some press and seal behind to keep the pieces in place. Now it's time to put it together. It's kind of like a puzzle, and since the start of the pandemic, I feel like I've become somewhat of a puzzle expert anyway. So we took our cards from pretty to absolute gorgeous, just by combining some of the basic techniques together to get a bit of a more complex look. Now, what if I told you that by adding an extra score line, you can take this card to a whole other level? Maybe not a level in difficulty, but a little surprise for the opener nonetheless. It's amazing what can happen when we simply change up the fold of our card or the size of our card. It can make our cards just seem so much different and unique and give us that joy again in creating our cards. Now, embossing folders can be a lot of fun, but simply running them through a machine doesn't take much skill, or that much time for the matter. These are great for really quick cards you need in a hurry. Now, this technique is something I came across by accident. A happy accident, as Bob Ross would call it. I was trying to take my embossing folders to the next level and decided to try out some perfect pearls. Well, it's one thing to do perfect pearls on plain cardstock, but I accidentally grabbed some cardstock with texture, and that was magical because I had a really vintage look, a look that is just really different than doing it on smooth cardstock. It's amazing what a little texture can do to your card. See how easy it is to combine some simple techniques together to make your cards turn from basic to intermediate? Meet me over here in this video. I'm going to show you 14 other background techniques that you can combine together to create some absolutely stunning cards. See you over there.